The consumption of media content is a very dangerous activity, and I think it should be conducted carefully. I've been chatting to somebody that I met from the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses people, and a group of, maybe quite a large group of Jehovah's Witnesses, when they had understood the reality of what's become known as biblical cosmology or real cosmology, and they'd understood the veil of deception that has been draped across the world by who knows who's behind it. Satan, I have to assume. Their eyes were opened because they brought these things into their kingdom halls and to their elders, and they got shut down, predictably. And then they began to look more critically at the organization of the Jehovah's Witnesses, which they had been brought up to believe was the only true access to Jehovah. And they read a corrupt Bible, the New World Bible, which misses out many verses. And so they became critical also of the Bible that they were reading, which is a good thing. And I think many of them started reading the Diodati, which is the Italian equivalent of the Authorized Version. But the person that I was speaking to, who had contacted me after a long silence, contacted me to share a sensational video about events occurring in the UK, riots and so on and so forth. And then she shared a whole load of other stuff of that nature. And when people do that, I wonder why they bother watching those things, because the media sensationalizes everything. We know that. And they've been caught out repeatedly using footage from different events and mixing it together to build up the story. That's what it's about. It's about sensationalism. That's how they get views. And I'm sorry to say that sometimes the events that you're being shown will be purely theatrical in nature. With enough money, it's not hard to hire quite a small number of crisis actors, so people who can be paid easily £1,000 a day for taking part in supposed crisis reaction videos. They know what they have to do to get the footage that they need. They're well paid for it. I mean, I'm quite critical of their choice of profession, to be quite honest, but people have to eat, I guess. I'm quite critical of some of the texts that I've translated in my career, that ink should never have been put to paper to say certain things, but I've got to feed myself. So I'm, no condemnation from me. But the more that you're, if you are involved in spreading any kind of deception, then it is a troubling matter, of course. We have to be careful. And so I think many of the people, from direct experience, who were in that original quite hearty group of rebels, people who were finally reading the Bible and gasping in amazement to understand the deceptions. Many of those people started to consume red pill content on the internet, and they were, because of their eschatology, they are quite easily led into any kind of catastrophic event story, because they yearn for the coming of Jesus Christ, which they believe will occur at the apocalypse. And so all stories that are somehow threatening or menacing and sensational will draw them in. And I pointed out that, watching that kind of content has a negative effect on the spirit. But I was told that, it's just a question of staying informed, because every single story of that nature confirms the eschatological understanding that very soon the apocalypse will begin and Jesus Christ will appear. That's the problem with those who rely on the teachings of the church and steadfastly refuse to take up the good book and read it as though for the first time. Read it carefully and read what it says. Read in Revelation where it says these things will shortly come to pass. Remember that John wrote that 2,000 years ago. And remember the meaning of the word shortly. The Bible speaks plainly. I'm just quoting one example that shows that the idea of coming apocalypse and the appearance of Jesus Christ is pure fantasy. But it's fantasy that was very carefully woven into the fabric of the church by wicked theologians in the 1800s. And Hayes Russell was among them, the founder of the Jehovah's Witnesses. But also the people that have informed your local Baptist assembly are behind them, are supporters. They've carefully read their treatises at Bible college. And so they've come to this understanding of the coming Armageddon, and they yearn for it. And they're persuaded to do so also by the media, subtly, because Satan wants the world to follow that agenda, because it removes the power of Christ, and it removes us from the kingdom of heaven, which is actually, even as I speak, is forming around us and within our communities. And these religious people, I suppose you could call them fanatics in some ways, and I think they would almost agree with that definition, such is their fervor, are just hopelessly deceived. And it's tragic. And no attempt that I've made several attempts to invite people to, to do a little bit more careful research into these things, but I'm seen then as being an apostate, trying to lead people astray and lacking faith. But of course, there is no coming apocalypse, because the apocalypse has come and gone. And Jesus Christ will rule among us when we get our act together and listen to his word and walk in the world obediently. He didn't tell us to watch sensationalist content. Sensationalism is just a devil, and it's used very ably to exercise control over the world. I don't know how to. It's something that saddens me to see this in particular, because of course these are people who very readily appeal to Jesus Christ and have belief in his death, burial, and resurrection. And so we share that basic understanding, but they have been led astray so wickedly and seem unable to reassess, or unwilling, I suppose. It's quite difficult, I suppose, if you've read the Bible all of your life and been told that it has certain meanings, then it must be very difficult to sort of start afresh with a blank slate approach to the Bible, which I think is really the best way to read it. At every Bible reading, in fact, would be, I suppose, but you can't do it because your understanding is already forming. Anyway, God bless everybody this morning on this chilly and really grey day. I suppose the skies have been covered. And I'm just relaxing at the moment because I'm still very tired. But I've made my outdoor cook station and I'm very pleased with that. Although I've looked at it critically and I realise that the roof structure, which was already optimistic, is probably the best word that you could use in engineering terms, is actually going to be quite chilly in the winter, because to go out there and stand by the grill, you'd want to have more of an enclosed structure, I think, that could be warmed efficiently, perhaps with a brazier, are they called? Or maybe that's something that women wear. But like a fire pit or something that I might be able to make. Or I've already got a barbecue that will do the job. A traditional style barbecue. So that's a project, and now I'm thinking what wood I shall need, how I'm going to do it, and I think it'll be really cool when I've finished it. But whether I've got the energy to get stuck into that, I don't know. My constitutional walks have tapered off a great deal because I've been very tired. So maybe I'll use my time organising something like that, if I can afford it as well, because of course all these projects cost money. And money is what has been being drained from all of our pockets at the moment. It's a finite resource, and most of it seems to end up in the pockets of people who are really undeserving of such wealth, I would say. God bless.